YouTube, what is going on? This is Gino Bonino. I want to thanks for checking my channel out once again. It's been far too long since I've thrown up a video. I've just been slammed. Got a new puppy dog. Come here. Hey, come here. Sorry. This is Button, issue 1. Say hi. How are you? Anyway, she's been taking up a lot of my time. Let me see how that worked out. There she is. Say hi. Okay. Anyway. Got a cat too, and the two of them don't necessarily get along that great. So it's been a little bit trying. Anyway, I've got a few books to show, guys. So you might want to go grab a soda or something like that. I want to talk about a few things. I have been updating my equipment somewhat. I've got a new mic and a new area to shoot videos in. So hopefully I'm going to get a handle on this whole thing and be able to pump out some stuff and do this a little bit more consistently. But anyway, let's get right to it. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about some modern books and a couple covers that I think have been sort of under-discussed, underappreciated. The first one is Wonder Woman 49. Again, I know a few people have shown this book, but I mean, that is just a drop-dead, gorgeous, gorgeous cover. Looks almost like, to me, almost like a religious thing or a Christmas card or something like that. And again, to me, it's just been a little bit underrepresented. So I just wanted to give it a little bit of love, put it out there. The other one, and this one kind of flew under a lot of people's radar, Hunt for Wolverine, Adamantium Agenda. It looks a little bit to me. One thing that I think maybe turned a lot of people off. He kind of got this Wolverine, looks a little bit weird, if you will. But the whole claws through the Iron Man thing is just, to me, was cool. It just stood out. A little bit reminiscent of Romita Jr. artwork. I don't know. That's what I take away from it. The mouth and stuff like that is where I got that from. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about these. Nothing, no big thing. In regards to stuff that I've picked up lately, just went to a con this past weekend in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And there was a grand total, check this out, of two dealers there. So there wasn't a lot of stuff. But anyway, I picked up a lot of these books I've got multiples of, but they're books that I kind of think are sitting a little bit under the radar, a little bit quiet, getting ready to kind of blow up a bit. This one being X-Men 4. I think I've got about 3 or 4 copies of this already. Omega Red, I think this is where he makes his very first appearance. I think the first full appearance is the next issue 5. But anyway, I would recommend getting this book. I have a feeling that Omega Red is from everything I kind of get a feel and a sense, and maybe this is going on for a while. It just seems like he's getting ready to make a move, that character, as far as getting some steam and some popularity. So my recommendation would be is if you see this cheap, $2, $3, $1 whatever, and you see it in good condition, I'd say get it. There's a lot of them out there, no doubt. Again, the X-Men books, I know in #1 especially, was printed in the millions, but 2, 3, 4, 5, it did drop off somewhat. There's still a ton of them out there by today's standards, but nonetheless, if you see it in good condition, see, that's the key to 90s books, is you want to get them in 9.6, 9.8 condition, because a lot of people didn't take care of their comics, and for that reason, sure, they sold millions of copies, but how many of those millions of copies are still in a gradable, collectible condition? My guess would be, significantly less. So that's my little take on 90s books, which is, yeah, there's a lot of them, but if you see them in good condition, still pick them up. Then I also picked up Aquaman #6 from the New 52. I forget but I do know that's a key. I can't talk about them too much, guys, because I got a big stack. I've got Miracle Man, the original, #4, and I picked up an old Silver Age, or actually probably a Bronze Age, House of Secrets, #121. Anytime I see the old horror stuff, House of Secrets and stuff like that, I get it. Wolverine, this is the Recall 131. You want to check on this to make sure that it's not the It's not the second one with the, and it's just, again, the only reason I got it is because it was a recalled book. There's some slippage of some verbiage and stuff like that in there. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's they say a thing, a disparaging word to Jewish people in there. And anyway, for that reason, it was recalled. And if you see it out there, the unrecalled or the recalled one, it's, for that reason, it's just kind of a noteworthy book. I also pick up these whenever I can because the movie should be coming out. These tend to, because of the chromium or the foil cover, tend to show a little bit of wear and tear. So you do want to check them for spine ticks and also scratches on the foil. But here again, it's just sort of like the 90s book thing I talked about earlier. If you find it in good condition, pick it up, because when word gets out, right now it's an undervalued book. When word gets out that this is going to be a movie, and hopefully it's a good movie. What I'm really hoping for is that whoever takes the Valiant stuff and runs with it does a good job on it. Because there's an untapped wealth of stuff with Harbinger and Dr. Solar, and there's just a lot of characters that they can do a lot with. So I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed. I know there's a bunch of stuff sitting in dollar boxes. If they do a good job, typically, you know how this stuff works. If the first movie is a hit, people see that they can make money, then they go and start dredging out and getting characters from all over the place. And there's a bunch of Valiant stuff that they can probably get the licensing for a song and going forward. I think a lot of it is already in production. I'm probably a little bit behind the times on that. But again, the first one would be Bloodshot. I think this will be the first Valiant movie to come out. I do know that if you think about it, when Iron Man hit, that really opened the door for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If I can promise you, if Iron Man would have flopped, that would have been it. I don't think a lot of things would have followed behind that. So that really opened the door to, that's the reason that you have Ant-Man and Wasp and stuff like that. It took a lot of the Marvel secondary characters, and they saw that they could make money with it and that people like it, and they took it and ran with it, and that's why you have what you have today. Anyway, I've got 3 of these. There's a couple coming. I got this, like I mentioned, at the con. That's the first Iron Man armor in space, 142. And I grabbed it again. There was not a lot of rhyme or reason. What I did is just looked for stuff that was in pretty good condition, or first appearance, last appearance, death of, stuff like that. This is first, I believe, Blizzard, issue 86. And I don't know what, I think this is 87. This is the second story. I think he dies right away. This is one of those situations where the same character that's introduced dies in the next issue, and I think that's what happens here. But nonetheless, it's still a first appearance, which is considered a key book. So, and I got these pretty cheap. I think I got these $2, something like that. So couldn't go wrong. Anytime I see stuff for 40 cents, 20 cents, quarter, whatever, those are old books, and again, they're not making any more of them. So I always will pick those up in good condition. Also picked up Silver Surfer 35 with a Thanos appearance. Again, that's been played out pretty much. I shouldn't say played out, but it definitely the hottest part of that whole thing, I think, has done its thing. But nonetheless, it's still a good book in my opinion to get. Thanos probably is going to remain hot for a while. So even though the big one is over, the big heat, there's still people that collect it. Then, in the same haul, I got an X Factor 1. Again, I don't know what they're going to do with this. But any first number ones, for the most part, I mean, if you've got Iron Man where they've got 6, 7 series number ones, that's usually not much. But there's not a lot of X Factor 1s. They've only done the series a couple times. So, and this is, again, a little bit older book, so picked it up. Also, Spider-Man Annual, number 22, and I believe this is the first Speedball. which is if you look through the annuals and you see this cheap, get this one. It was also recommended by the Key collector app as being something worth looking for, and I thought I had this book. Actually, turns out I didn't. So when I saw it, I picked it up, and I got another one of these, which is First Cameo of Carnage. It's in pretty good shape, so again, I picked it up. Alpha Flight #1 to all my Canadian friends, and it's in good shape. And this was the biggie. I didn't have this one in my repertoire, round 1. I know a lot of people have talked about it. What happened, these books that were kind of issued during this time was when I was in a bit of a lull from collecting. Probably I was off to college or something like that, and I just kind of got away from it. Other stuff became more important, so there's, a couple little gaps in my life where I didn't do much collecting. One is probably about 5 years ago up to about 2 years ago, and the other one is back between like high school and college and stuff like that, and that's probably when this was released, somewhere in that neighborhood. Also the fact that I wasn't a big collector of I was into more superheroes and stuff like that. I wasn't into, things like Transformers and whatnot, so I didn't really get comic books associated with that. Again, I wish I would have, but for the longest time, this book probably just sat in the dollar boxes, but now it's kind of becoming kind of a hot commodity because of the possibility of the movie coming out and stuff like that. And I picked up another one of these, second appearance of Deadpool, X-Force #2. I didn't own this one, so this was the first time with Silk movie coming out. I figured this would be a good issue to get cheap and let it sit for a little while, marinate. So I got that. I picked up an X Factor 75 and a 92. Again, kind of minor keys, but keys nonetheless. So I figured, what the heck? They were, I think, $1. Might as well get them. What if Venom had possessed the Punisher, kind of a go-nowhere book for the longest time, but now all of a sudden it's hot because of Venom and all that kind of stuff being hot. So, and also it's kind of unique to see the Punisher logo across Venom's chest as opposed to Spider-Man. And Saga of Swamp Thing #3. Any old Swamp Things, if you see them and they're in good shape, I would say to pick them up, because with DC now getting their own streaming service and having Swamp Thing as one of their properties, this could very well be a hot commodity. So I would recommend, if you see any of the original or the second series of Swamp Thing, I would say get it, because once again, it's if it's all on how well they do. Think about, for example, the Inhumans had a go nowhere, do nothing TV series, and it unfortunately kind of sunk them. All of their books and all their first appearances and stuff like that really hasn't done much. But if this Swamp Thing is good, and I hope they do a good job with Swamp Thing. I know people have talked about Swamp and Man Thing. I was big fans. I used to read both of them. And if they do a good job with it, it's a very interesting read. I know I always liked how tormented he was. Anytime you had kind of the sort of the big-hearted superhero with the ugly exterior, like the Thing or Swamp Thing and stuff like that, it was always interesting because they could always do a lot with that character, and I always liked that. So also I got a Web of 99. Strangely enough, this is one of those situations where the cameo sells for more than the first appearance, but nonetheless, this is still a good book to have. When I saw it, I picked it up right away. Web of, he had a bunch of this guy that at the con had a bunch of Web of, so I picked up a few to fill holes in my run. 81. And again, I mentioned having a couple of these, 107, so I picked up 2 more. And then one thing that's kind of been my goal is to get an entire run of Spawn books. So he had just some dollar specials that are recent books, $278, $280, $279, and let's see here, what, $277. I kind of like that cover the best. So I got those mainly just, again, to fill the runs that I have. I also picked up a couple of Ninjak Bloodshots. again, I've got probably a dozen of these already, but I figure what the heck. Another character that could possibly go somewhere once the movies like all that come. And as far as I went to my comic shop, had a collector of Spawns come in, and they had the cover swipe books from other stuff. So I picked up these. This is Spawn. Let's see, what number is this? 224, which is a cover swipe of The Dark Knight, Frank Miller. And 225, this is the cover swipe of Watchmen. These books are really sweet. I mean, these are in good condition. I normally don't pay a lot for stuff unless it's in really good shape, and this stuff is. This is suitable. This would easily grade in nines, high nines, I have a feeling. And that's kind of why I got it. 226, which is my favorite cover pretty much, besides the 880. My next probably favorite cover, kind of a tie, and I've talked about it before, is the 340 Hulk. And again, this is the cover swipe of that. Also, issue 222, which is the cover swipe of Spider-Man 316. And 230, which is a cover swipe of McFarlane's first Batman, which is 423. Still has those flowy kind of, if you noticed on the book with Batman, he's got the same sort of flowy cape that he does there. And Spawn 231, which is a cover swipe of McFarlane's run on Spider-Man, the first #1 issue. Then this one isn't really a cover swipe, but it's a very low print run book, 249. I don't know what the exact number is, but I do know that it's way low. And I got some a little bit more recent Spawns, but the variant covers, the black and whites and whatnot, 263, 265, 266, 267, 268, and the Everyone Kills, Spawn Kills Everyone book. Then I picked up a couple off eBay. I got a couple not real high grade, but still cool books. I got Iron Man #5, which was really not much happens in this book, I'll be honest. But any before issue 10 books, I really kind of like. So I picked it up. Again, there's not much happens. It's not a key by any means, but I got it very cheap. I think I got this for like $40, $45. Just whenever you've got an old Silver Age book like this and you get it graded, just the grading alone is probably about $35, $40. So I figured, what the heck? It's not a high grade book, but again, it's still something that I like. These are the type of things that I collect for myself. I don't ever intend on really waiting. This isn't going to jump anywhere and get hot and sell and all that kind of stuff. It's just something that I like, so that's why I picked it up. And got this kind of on anticipation of the upcoming movie, if it's still on. From what I understand, because Solo didn't perform as well as they were hoping, it's kind of an on-again, off-again proposition. I do, however, think that the fan base of this book will always be such that it's going to, it'll be fine. So I bought this sort of in anticipation of the movie, but if that doesn't happen, oh well, I'll live with that. I didn't pay a ton of money for this. I think altogether it was about $80 or something like that. But what I kind of bought it for was anticipation of the movie coming out, and wait and see what happens to it then. So we'll see. Then, last thing I'm going to show, guys, is I had this, I had a bunch of stuff come back from CGC. Now, this was the quickest I've ever had anything turn around. I think I sent this out about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I know I showed my Venom books, and those were some of the books that I had graded, and that's what came back. But kind of a quick story. The reason I didn't do a blind open on this box is because the mailman came, or actually the UPS guy, and I came and stuck the box up on a shelf and went to sign and just run. I was running. It was kind of crazy. I was running a few errands, and I heard a crash, and I said, "Oh my gosh!" I got there, and sure enough, the box had fallen from about 4 or 5 feet, and had landed on the side. And I thought for absolute sure I was going to open this up and have a bunch of plastic and shards and stuff. And I was so bummed. To make a long story short, I didn't. Everything was fine. But I want to show you what happened. Now, if you're familiar with the way CGC does their stuff, they put like some accordion newspaper in there, accordion cardboard, excuse me, and I'm going to show you what happened. That accordion cardboard absolutely saved my butt, because had that not been in there, that took the brunt of the fall. Had that not been in there, it would have been a disaster. But again, what happens is it's kind of just like a car. If you get in an accident, you've ever seen a car, they have what they call crinkle zones. This cardboard did the same thing. It crinkled up and saved the book. So thank goodness. But anyway, first book that this stuff just came back about 3 or 4 days ago. After about a 3 or 4 day CGC, 3 or 4 week. I did ask for a quick turnaround. I was kind of doing a little bit of a personal experiment to see how quickly they did stuff for future reference, and also if stuff graded any different. Make a long story short, my opinion, it doesn't. It grades pretty much consistently, but nonetheless, the first book was a Spider-Man 300, which graded at a 9.0, and I want to tell you a little story about this. This was a book that I used to put up as a display book on, I used to have kind of like a man cave in Wisconsin, and I used to display my books up on the wall. And unfortunately, what happened is this one, I left it up. There was zero natural room in my room, but what there was the tube lights like you have in stores and stuff like that, and those tube lights must have produced enough light that it faded the book somewhat. So this probably would have been about a 9.4 book, but it got a little bit faded, sadly. But anyway, I'm happy with 9.0. It's still a nice book. This was the third copy of this that I have had graded, and I sold the first two, and this is the third one. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this one. We'll wait and see. But anyway, this was also, unfortunately, this one was my reading copy, so it was kind of dinged and dented up and stuff like that, and it was pressed out by, if you haven't subbed him up, go please check him out. He Got Freaking Issues. I know there's a few people on here that press, but again, I will always sing the praises of He Got Freaking Issues. Once again, check him out. He pressed this and it saved it. I sent it once in, it didn't make the grade. I did a 9.0 as my kind of cutoff point, and it was rejected. Didn't do 9.0, so it went in the second time, and this time it made the grade. So good job. Now the other ones, I wasn't quite as lucky. These were reading copy books, so we did the best we could with them. This is in 130. Whoa, this is a 135. X-Men. This is the Dark Phoenix story. Came back as an 8.0, and that didn't surprise me. Again, this was a book that I bought off a newsstand myself, read it, probably. I didn't used to curl the backs around very much, but I know I read it, and I know that it was bounced around and stuff like that. So it didn't surprise me that it came back lower than a near mint book. But again, it's still a pretty book, still nice. And what I typically do is stuff that comes back less than near mint, I just keep it. Because I'm not that super picky. I don't have to have a 9.8, 9.6, whatever in my personal collection, as long as I have a copy and I know what it is and I know the history behind it. I'm perfectly okay with that. But if I get something that comes back in a really high grade, I typically will flip that, and then I buy other stuff with it. And again, I've talked about it many times, but Anyway, 8.0. And then, strangely, a 125 in that same storyline, also an 8.0. These were the two kind of disappointments that were in this this bunch of books. Everything else did better than that, but again, it didn't surprise me, and I'm certainly not going to lose sleep over it. I'll just hang on to these books more than likely. The other one is, this is the third one of these that I've had graded. Came back as a 9.2, web of 18, black costume story. So I was happy with that. And then check this out. I want to show you guys the difference in colors. This is the Cletus Cassidy 344, and this is one. Now these are untouched. These were not faded. They came out of the printing this way. This is one, and this is the other. And I don't know if you can tell the difference, but this one is more of a teal, kind of a greenish blue, and this one is more of a bluish blue. And this is a real common thing for this particular book. I know there's other books that have that same thing. People have talked about them, but I'll show you again. Let's take the plastic off. That compared to that. So anyway, just something to be aware of if you see it. Now, I've asked a few questions on CGC boards and stuff like that, and the answer I've got is it just had to do with the amount of ink that happened to be in the machine when it printed that issue. So basically, it wasn't so much that they made a mistake, it's just that they probably had a little bit less of one color and more of the other when it was printing it out, and for that reason they came out slightly different. If you have many issues of Spider-Man 363, you'll find the same thing. You'll see some that are kind of a darker green and some that are a little bit of a less dark green. Anyway, I've showed these. These came back. I got a Venom 9.6 Lethal Protector #1. I showed these books a couple videos ago, and they just came back. I've got one that's 9.6, but luckily we did better with the other ones. That one came back as a 9.8, and that one came back as a 9.8. Uh-oh. And 3, 4, 5. Now, I don't want to say I was kind of like a comic hoarder back here these days, but I kind of had a gut feeling that this book was going to be hot at some point, and that's kind of why I did this. And strangely enough, and again, you're going to hear these stories over and over again, this is a dollar book. This book sat in the dollar box for a long time. And then the movie got announced, and it got a little bit warmed up and stuff like that. Similar story with Spider-Man 361. Sad I couldn't give it away. And then the movie got announced, and Venom got more popular, and the book went crazy. So I kind of have a hunch that's going to be the new thing with 90s, 80s books, stuff like that. I don't know if it'll be sustained. I don't know if this will go back down to, just barely a $5 book at some time. I'm not sure, but I do know that you got to kind of strike while the iron's hot, and that was kind of the theory here. Now, I'll keep one for myself, and I'll keep a gold one for myself, but the other ones I'm going to sell. One thing I should tell you, if you buy this book and you see it in the raw, there's a couple very, other than spine ticks, which are, that happens with anything. Look right here by Venom's claws, and there'll be a little U-shaped divot in his, that I think was a printing error. There must have been either hair or something like that got in the ink, and it made like a little U here, and if you see that, I don't know if that will count it. I assume that's going to take a 0.2 off the book if it gets graded, but it's a very common little tiny printing error. So once again, if you find the book, the only thing that I know of, like 361, for example, has those little tears that are down in the bottom by Carnage's leg, and they also often are are misaligned. You'll see like an orange stripe that runs up and down it from where it was not centered properly when it was printed. Venom Lethal Protector, at least the red ones, I can't speak for the gold ones, but the red ones have a little divot right there between that claw and that claw, and it's like a little kind of like a little upside down C, if you will. And check for that. Again, I don't know if that'll count. I don't know if that'll make it less than, but it's just something to be aware of if you do look, and grade is super important for you. These, I did have a couple of them with that, and it still was a 9/8, so I don't know if, I assume it certainly wouldn't have been a gem mint book without it, but nonetheless, it's still something to be aware of. And that is it, guys. I know I kind of rattled through this, but I haven't done this for a while, and I wanted to get something out there. Thanks for watching. And again, I just have to say this one more time. I watch all of your guys' stuff. I really do, but I'm one of those people that watch stuff on my TV, and for that, I wish they would make it to where we could comment and stuff. You know, give us a little keyboard. But unfortunately, they haven't done that. So all I can do is thumbs up your stuff. I can't do a lot of commenting. I wish I could, because I sometimes will come back to my computer and whatnot. But it's not so much that I don't enjoy your guys' stuff. I love it, but it's just that I just don't get an opportunity to do a whole lot of commenting. But nonetheless, I can give it a thumbs up, so I do. And that is it. So once again, thanks for watching. Sorry that this went so long. Gino Bonino, I am out. Happy hunting, guys. See you later, and talk to you later. Bye-bye.